Coach, first half, the offense got off to a quick start and then kind of stalled until kind of right before the half. Did they do anything different than what you were expecting defensively?
No, not really. I mean, we went out and I don't know. I mean, it happens sometimes when you have some quick success early, you fight through a little bit of a lull offensively, because I think when stuff seems easy, players tend to think it's easy and they kind of relax a little bit and have to refocus. So really nothing they did different, and really nothing we did different other than just basic execution,
Both Smith and Payne ran for 100 yards each. I mean, what's that say about your dynamic duo and also your offensive line?
Well, I mean, I thought both of those kids played exceptionally well. I thought the O-line played physical, and I thought, going into the game, as everybody can see, I mean, their back end's good. And there were times we wanted to test those guys, and I mean, it backfired on us, You don't throw picks on one-on-one fade routes too often, you really don't. But those guys, I mean, JD made a couple exceptional plays. That kid, he's long, he's got good ball skills. And so, obviously, the focus from then on went to let's put the ball in play and run the ball, because, I mean, those guys are really good on the back end. So, I mean, you got to take what they give you, and you got to be smart about how you attack. And so, I mean, sitting there and attacking their back end isn't always the smartest thing to do. So, and I feel extremely confident with those running backs. I feel extremely confident with the way we've been running the football all camp and everything. So, I mean, it was an easy decision to make.
At what point did you make that decision? Was that halftime or before?
Yeah, probably a little bit before halftime. I mean, they were getting us into some 3rd and 7 pluses, and protection was tough. It's tough versus anybody when you get 3rd and longs. I mean, it's just not just them. I mean, people have blitz packages, and whenever you don't have the threat to run the football, protection's tough in today's game. And so, so then my mentality was like, let's chip away a little bit. And the nature of their defense is they play coverage. They play a guy in the middle of the field. They don't want to give up posts. And so when people play that, you have to be patient as a play caller. You got to put the ball in play underneath. That's why we were throwing slant routes. We were throwing glance routes. Trying to put the ball in play in the pockets and run the football. And so really that was the plan at halftime, really.
What did you think of the O-line? I mean, for them to kind of come together and do that, especially in the second half, it looked like they were just mulching people.
Well, 2 things about the offensive line. We played a lot of people, and I thought Jack did a great job of rolling those guys in. That's as good of a percentage as I've seen with like 8 guys. Typically after the game, you look at the participation chart and you think, well, I wish we would have played so-and-so more, And so we spread those reps out, which was good, and there was really not a lot of fall off, which was even better. And those guys got out there and they were, playing hard. And we preached all week about, I mean, the game's won. I don't care what kind of offense or defense you run. The game is won up front on both sides of the ball. And I don't care if you got Tom Brady back there. I mean, if you can't protect and he's on the ground, guess what? You're not going to have a very good day. And so we challenged those guys, and we challenged them at halftime. I told them at halftime, I said, look, guys, we got to run the football, And so I tell you, the overall attitude on the sideline of that group was amazing, Nobody ever blinked. Everybody was extremely confident, and so I think that's what eventually helped.
Coach, going into the game, did you feel like you were going to be able to run the ball with that level of success, or did it just kind of snowball once the time of possession kind of flipped in the second half?
I don't think you go into a game knowing what's going to work, to be honest with you. I think you go into a game with a plan of putting the ball in play. You have your overall layout of, okay, this is where we want to attack. You have your overall layout of these are the shots, right? The shots we're going to take. Our shots wasn't working out very well, We had some one-on-one matchups that I thought we wanted to go to, and when we went to them, obviously it backfired on us. So ultimately that made me focus on the other part of the game plan that we had, which is basically just chipping away. And when you get down like that, I think the fight as a coordinator is to not try to get it all back in one play. You only overcome a deficit like that by slowly chipping away. You can only do it one drive at a time, and I think that there's 2 things that play into that. One is just being patient, and 2 is getting the ball back. And so if you look at the way the game unfolded, our defense started playing really well, which in turn just got us the ball back quicker. And so I think both of those were extremely key in surmounting the deficit we had.
Probably a third thing that enters into that equation is your patience as a coach and your no panic sort of attitude.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, Coach Hobson on the sideline never panicked. And I think that just bled over to the whole group. And so, I mean, you could see in his eyes, you could see in our players' eyes that, you know, guess what? We're down. You know, what was it, 30-10 or whatever it was?
35-10.
35-10.
Yeah, even worse. And so, but, you know, I kept telling our guys too, I mean, you know, if we could, like at the end of the half, I mean, we had a good idea of our 2-minute plan. And we had a good idea that if we got in a 2-minute situation, that protection was obviously going to be good because they're going to play soft. And we had a couple certain concepts that we thought we could get a big play on. And so, you know, when that turned out good for us and we scored right at the end of the half, I thought that that could put a little bit of pressure back on them. And I thought if we got the pressure over to them, then it would tighten them up a little bit and we could go out and play good, you know. And that was really, at the end of the half, it was crucial for us to put a decent drive together right there and at least get some points, maybe a field goal, you know.
All week, folks have been asking about going back to Kentucky and blah, blah. Any personal vindication coming out of this, or was it just another, I mean?
You know, I mean, it's hard to sit there. I'm going to answer that two ways, you know, because it's a little bit of a loaded question because when you go back to the place you work, of course, the game means a lot, you know. But I'm not so sure that it would have meant any more than any other team. I mean, winning against an SEC team means a lot to this program. I mean, Coach Hobson sold our team on the fact that, I mean, look, this place was built on that, you know. And so, and not having one for a while was important. And so just the fact of that made the game important. Now, the fact that we were playing them, I mean, obviously, for me, it made it a little more weird. Is that probably right? I mean, I was going back there. I mean, you know, when I hugged Coach Norman before the game, and I love that guy. You know, there's a lot of people over there that I care deeply about. And I don't have any bad feelings towards Coach Stoops. You know, I talked to him Thursday before the game, and I talked to him after the game. And I mean, look, I mean, head coaches have to make tough decisions. You know, that's the bottom line. And so we wasn't very good on offense last year. I get that. You know, I have probably more regret than I do, you know, bad feelings. And so I'm always the kind of person, I'm going to look at myself. You know, I mean, I could have done better, you know. But ultimately, I'm here. And so I'm extremely blessed to be here. You know, Coach Hobson, you know, extremely fortunate and thankful that he gave me this opportunity. And I couldn't be more happy. You know, I mean, I'm right here close to where I grew up. I mean, God truly has blessed me to be here. And I mean, so everything, in my opinion, works out the right way. And so I had no hard feelings at all. I wanted to win the game for multiple reasons, you know, and the way it played out was great. I mean, the winning the game was good, but I don't want to downplay anything there because that is a great place, and they got a lot of good people there. And I care deeply for a lot of the players and people there, so I don't want to shine any bad light on that either.
Coach, when you look ahead to this game against Savannah State, it's not a high-profile team like you just went up against. How do you guard? Two questions: how do you guard against a letdown with your squad? And number two, do you do anything special for them, or you just try to improve on what you want to do well?
I think you try to improve. But I mean, the first question is, I mean, you can ask every coach that question. You know, I mean, it's a very generic question about how to get your team prepared versus certain teams and other teams. Just the way it is. Now, that does show the overall maturity of your team, of how they prepare week to week. You know, I mean, obviously last week was the first game, was an SEC game, so it was pretty easy to get fired up for and play. And now that we've won that game, you know, success is funny. You know, I mean, you know, if you let people pat you on the back when you do good, those same people are going to have the knife when you do bad. You know, so I mean, I think you gotta. It's like the poem "If." You know, those two imposters, success and failure. You know, if you don't face those exactly the same, ultimately they're going to get you. Either one will get you. And so having a little bit of success, great. But when you have bad things happen or you have good things happen, you better just cut it and move on with both of them. Because both of those little demons will eventually get you in some way or another. So I think Coach Hobson, he mentioned that to the team early. And so I think that, you know, that's important. That's going to be my message to the group is, look, guys, good things and bad things are going to happen in a game. Good things or bad things are going to happen in life. If you don't treat those two imposters exactly the same, and you let people pat you on the back and you think you're the greatest thing ever, you know, let 1 week go. It's, what have you done for me lately in this deal, right? And so you got to move forward. And I think that we have enough maturity on this team to do that, but we'll see.
Ito, you really fed him in the second half.
Yeah.
He had, what, 35 carries, something like that. Not the biggest guy in the world, but Payne came in there and did well too. Do you see it splitting?
I do. I mean,
Yeah.
I see those guys as, I mean, they're a great compliment to each other. If you just look at them, you know, I mean, Ito's the kind of guy that, you know, obviously you want to get that guy in space, although we were running him between the tackles a good bit. I didn't feel like he was taking a beating, you know, does that make sense? I mean, I was watching the game, and even though we were running him inside the tackles, he was slipping through, and it wasn't like he was just taking a beating. And so I never was worried about, hey, you know, let's watch the kids carry. You know, I mean, the one thing, again, I know I go back to Coach Hobson's message a lot, but, you know, as far as running, gassers, I mean, our physical level right now is really high. And so, I mean, and he teaches mental toughness. You know, he probably said in the interview the other day, the Southern Miss way a lot, you know. And I think our kids buy into that. And so, I mean, that never factored into my mind. I was going to rotate them anyway. And so I think that when George got in there, I mean, you know, I thought George played great. You know, from the spring till now, that kid's made extreme strides. And so, you know, I mean, but Ito touching the ball that much, I mean, I think you can just get used to that. You know, ultimately, I'm trying to get the best players the ball, you know, and I think that we probably have to be a little bit more creative in how we get him the ball. You know, I think he caught 6 balls.
5 or 6.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that's something that I would probably look at more than anything is, you know, we could probably get him the ball in space a little more, you know.
Two more questions.
Coach, you talked about question marks going into this game. How many of those questions were answered about what you think they did?
Well, if you look at just based on what Southern Miss offense lost from last year, you know, I mean, we wanted to see if the tackles, right? We lost 2 good football players at tackles. We lost a bunch of good receivers. You know, the bulk of the receiving stuff last year was gone. So I think if you look at both of those, I mean, up front, I thought our O-line played exceptional, you know. Did protection break down 1 or 2 times? Yeah, but they were in situations really where I put them in bad situations. You know, I had a 3rd and long, you know, and I know sometimes I've had a lot of 3rd and longs where people get on to me for running outside zone or something, but sometimes that's the best play, you know, because, I mean, in pass protection there is tough, you know. And so, but I thought we held up strong on the edges, you know. I thought at receiver, we made plays at times, but I do think that those, like, one-on-one balls, we got to get better at that. You know, we got to hold up a little tougher when people are melting us off. Now they're really good at corner, they're really big at corner, but ultimately, when you know, now this is probably coming from an ex-quarterback, but I mean, when you give somebody an opportunity and it's one-on-one, either you catch it or nobody does, right? And so I mean, I think we can make improvements there.
And kind of looking at Savannah State on defense, what do they look like? How do you feel like you're going to match up against them?
I mean, it looks to me, I mean, they look really active up front. You know, I mean, it's really a different nature defense than what we went against last week. You know, I mean, last week they were very big, real gap-oriented guys. This week it's more like our guys are pin your ears back and get penetration. So, I mean, I think that the overall makeup of the defense is different. You know, so, I mean, I think that up front our mindset's probably going to have to be a little bit different in how we attack it.
What about Nick's play, you know, from first half to second half?
Yeah, I mean, somebody, after the game, I was talking to somebody, and they made a comment that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, but they said that, well, even though Nick didn't have his best game, and I said, you know, I thought he did because of what happened. You know, I mean, how many times do you see quarterbacks go out there and have that much adversity hit at the beginning and play that well in the second half? You know, and a lot, you know, I'm sitting there watching film yesterday and grading him out, and it's hard to, all 3 of those picks really, it's not like, okay, that's a bad decision, your eyes were in the wrong place. I mean, the ball went to the right place. Either they made a great play or the ball got tipped and they picked it, you know. So, I mean, you know, he threw 3 picks, but none of those 3 picks were interceptions where, hey, the ball shouldn't have went there, you know. The ball went to the right place. 2 of them, I mean, J.D. made great plays. That corner, you got to pat him on the tail. Look, that was a great play. The other one, you know, it got tipped. It really should have been an incompletion. The safety came over and picked it. That's going to happen, really, you know. Really, the only bad decision was really the one he threw that they dropped. You know, that was the one that was probably the more teachable moment. The other 3 weren't teachable moments because the ball went to the right place.